"Now, what's the matter?" she asked breathlessly, one hand against her side. "My lambs, I'm glad the new house don't have all them stairs." "But it'll have some stairs, won't it, Cuffy? And it'll have a swing, won't it? And a room for me all by myself?" bleated Oliver, trotting beside her. "Just sit down on my suitcase, will you, Cuff?" said Rush. "It won't shut." Cuffy had a kind heart, a good temper, an elastic patience, and she weighed closer to 200 pounds than she cared to admit. When she sat down beside Mona on the suitcase, Randy fell off. There was no room for her. The suitcase gave a sort of leathery groan and closed. Rush sprang forward and snapped the catches as if he were trapping a lion. "There's 2 advantages to being stout," Cuffy said. "1, you can shut suitcases with your weight alone, and 2, it takes a lot to sweep you off your feet. Here, Rush, Mona, give me a hand and help me up. It takes a lot to get you on your feet, too," she added regretfully. "Oliver, I just washed your face. However did you get it dirty again?" Oliver looked at her innocently. There was a lopsided beard of dust on his chin, and 2 dark stripes on his forehead. "Me? I don't know, Cuffy. I didn't do anything." "He could stand in the middle of a clinic and get dirt on him," Rush said. "He exerts a magnetic action which attracts soot, dust, egg stain, chalk marks, strawberry jam, and ink." "Look who's talking," jeered Mona. "It's only about the last year, Rush, that Cuffy hasn't had to send you back to wash your neck every single time." "Hello there," called a voice from downstairs in the kitchen. "Anybody home?" "Oh, it's Willie," Cuffy said. "Up here, Willie. Please help us with the luggage." Willie Sloper had been the Melendez furnace man for as long as any of the children could remember, and now he was coming to the country with them. "From furnace man to farmhand in one quick change," Willie had said. "Don't know how it's going to work out. Only livestock I ever handled was dray horses and alley cats. Only poultry I'm acquainted with is sparrows and pigeons. Only garden I ever grew was on a fire escape. Only digging I ever done was in the furnace to get the ashes, or on the front stoop to clear the snow. But we'll see." "Why, Willie, how grand you look," said Mona. They all stared at Willie, who was wearing a brown felt hat, which he forgot to remove, an overcoat, and long taffy-colored shoes. They had never seen him before except in his old blue jeans, patched sweater, furnace man's shoes, and cap with the ear flaps down. They hardly knew him. He picked up the 2 suitcases and carried them down to the front hall where the rest of the luggage was waiting in a patient herd. Rush followed with the scores and Isaac's carrier. But where was Isaac? The search for him lasted nearly 10 minutes, and then he was found shivering miserably under the basement washtub. "Poor dog, he doesn't want to leave either," said Randy dolefully. "Aw, he doesn't care where he goes," said Rush in his toughest manner. "All he's thinking about is how much he hates his carrier." Willie Sloper got a taxicab. The luggage was bundled into it and strapped onto it until it looked less like a taxi than a moving van. Randy put on her old brown hat with the elastic that was so tight under her chin she couldn't swallow. Oliver had a last trace of soot removed from his face with a damp handkerchief, and Mona hid behind a door and put some powder on her nose. "Come, my lambs," said Cuffy. "We haven't much time to spare." All of them looked back as they went out the door, except Rush and Oliver. Rush because he wouldn't, and Oliver because it simply didn't occur to him. Behind them the front door closed. For the last time, Randy thought again. It had a hollow sound as it closed on all that emptiness. Somehow they fitted themselves into the taxi, but there was little room for free movement afterward. "My nose itches, Cuffy," Oliver complained, "but I can't get my hand up to scratch it." As they drove away, Randy managed to turn her head and look back. The elastic of her hat bit cruelly into her neck, but she caught a last glimpse of the house. It seemed as if the house looked back at her helplessly with all its empty windows. The train ride to the country was not very interesting. Rain blurred the glass so that it was hard to see out. Isaac howled and wailed to the annoyance of the other passengers and the hot embarrassment of Rush, and Oliver got sick from excitement. He sat very still, looking blue around the mouth, and answering questions with short, cautious answers. Randy and Mona sat opposite him and Cuffy, while Rush, with Isaac's carrier on his lap, sat beside Willie Sloper like a man of the world and discussed Major League Baseball when he could make himself heard above Isaac. A diversion was caused by the sudden, loud, clear ringing of the alarm clock in Cuffy's suitcase. The suitcase was on the rack overhead, under 2 hat boxes and a raincoat, so they just had to sit and listen until it ran down. The noise caused Isaac to burst into even more ambitious yelps of protest, and the other passengers stared at the Melendys as if they were a family of typhoid carriers. "Oliver, did you set that clock?" hissed Cuffy. "I guess maybe I did," admitted Oliver guiltily. He was in the habit of setting the alarms on all the clocks he came in contact with, for the sheer simple pleasure he derived from hearing them go off. But this was something he hadn't bargained for. It jarred the stomach-ache right out of him. After that, he spent a very happy hour and a half traveling back and forth from the water cooler with paper cups full of water. Finally, when it was beginning to get dark, the conductor marched through the car shouting, "Braxton! Braxton! Braxton next stop!" And the Melendys went through their usual scramble of getting themselves assembled. "I see Father! I see Father!" shrieked Oliver ecstatically as the train stopped. And in the next moment they were all hurling themselves upon their highly valued only parent. "Where is the house? Where is it?" cried Oliver, looking about him as if he had expected Father to bring it to the station. "Miles away," said Father. "Right out in the country, in a valley." In a valley. That sounded promising. Randy took her place in the taxi. It was much bigger than city taxis, and she had room to turn comfortably and look out through the rain-spangled window at the streets of the town. The maple trees were yellow, but most of the others were still green. Set back among leaves, she saw the houses, neat and respectable-looking, each with its lawn. She saw 2 boys in slickers, and a wet horse pulling a wagon, and a cat on a front porch, and dozens of beds of soaked chrysanthemums bowing heavily under the rain and wind.